Rule number 7, sharpen the saw.
How many people here read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey? What's the 7th habit? Sharpen the saw. Very good. Sharpen the saw. The metaphor here is if you have all this wood to cut and you have a saw with a dull blade, when do you want to sharpen it? Before you start cutting the wood, right? Because a lot of people are going to work hard, is going to work a lot harder if you have a dull blade, and they have to sweat and perspire and work 3 or 4 times harder when they could have sharpened their saw. And so learning how to learn, like Vishen was talking about, that's you sharpening the saw. Because anything that comes afterwards is going to be easier, right? And so if that person's not working harder, they're working what? Smarter. And one of the best ways to work smarter is accessing your genius states. So I'm going to test this out. We said that children are the fastest learners, right? That they have this curiosity and they play all the time. Let's see how many people here, raise your hand if you're willing to play. Now, it's been shown in science, the research, by playing more actually creates neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. What's neurogenesis? New growth, new brain cells. How many people like the idea of creating more new brain cells? What about neuroplasticity? What does that mean? More connections. So intelligence, in a way, is not necessarily, like Einstein didn't have a bigger brain than anyone here. Probably, it was actually less. He had a smaller brain. But in certain areas of his brain, he had highly connectedness. He did these thought experiments where he would put himself in these brainwave states, specifically theta state. The theta state of creativity. That's the state that you're in when you shower. Have many people noticed when you're showering, you come up with all these wonderful ideas? And it's always when you can't write something down, right? And so that's the theta state. That's a relaxed state of creativity. You're inspired. You come up with new ideas. New things come out of you, right? And I actually took 6 showers this morning just to prepare for this presentation. So it puts you in creative state. And so he had more connections in certain areas. And so you could promote that by playing more.
Rule number 8, overcome struggles.
All of us go through struggles, right? In our health or relationship, whatever it is, but through struggles come strengths. And people don't talk about this as much. And I probably have a post-traumatic, stress from it, going through brain injury after brain injury. There's also post-traumatic growth, which like a lot of it's not as widely talked about, but there's some people that go through immense amount of trauma and difficulty and challenge, but they come out of it actually more empowered, that they say to themselves that because of going through this, I found a new strength, I found my superpowers, I found a new meaning in my life, I found a new level of commitment, I found a strength, a mission, if you will. And they wouldn't, just a lot of them attest that they wouldn't trade that experience, no matter how painful it was at the time, for anything. And I find that growing up with reading challenges, and I couldn't read for an extra 3 years. I pretended how to read.
Whoa,
and it's like the imposter syndrome. It's like they have this image of how they want to be projected to the world, and then they have this image of what they fear they are, right. And then they have their real who they are. But I think a lot of people are suffering and overloaded and overwhelmed, and they're depleted because they're trying to hold these images in place, and then be themselves also as well in different contexts. So that's why I love you, because you are the same on camera and off. And there's a congruency, there's an authenticity that's there. And I feel like a lot of people expend unnecessary amounts of energy trying to hold up this image of their ideal self to the world. And then they have this image that they fear so it's going to be revealed to somebody else. And so growing up as a kid who couldn't read, I would pretend I understood things. Like teachers would explain things, and I didn't want to be the only one who didn't understand, and I would pretend, but in private I was really suffering and struggling.
Rule number 9, be authentically you.
Last year, I had the privilege to go in and train the chairman of 20th Century Fox and his senior staff, about 20 people. And when going down the hallway, I was lit up because I would see all these movie posters, because I became a kid again. Sure. Titanic and Star Wars and Aliens and Avatar. I'm just like, amazing. And I go in and I'm really great. I like to be like humble, but it was amazing. Sure. I got everyone, they doubled their reading speed and their focus and all their memory, amazing stuff. As a thank you, the chairman took me around the studio. It's a closed lot, but showed me all the movie sets and television sets. Wow. And I was lit up like a kid because I'm still that kid. And I think I was really great in that moment because I was like a child. I was playful and it was fun. I think that's the state you want to learn in. Anyway, when we were walking to the studio, I saw this movie poster of the upcoming Wolverine movie with Hugh Jackman, and I'm a huge Hugh Jackman fan. Yeah. And he was like, I was like, I can't wait to see that movie. And he picked up, because it was coming out for a few weeks, he picked up the phone, and 5 minutes later, I'm in the Fox Theater with 3D glasses and popcorn, watching Hugh Jackman take on all these super ninjas. And it was awesome. And I'm the only one. And I'm just thinking, this is incredible. I have the control panel here and everything. I'm just thinking. And then afterwards, we're done. He picks me up, and he's like, how is the movie? You know, there's some market research. I was like, this was amazing. And because I'm still like a 7-year-old, I go back and I tell him, you know, you don't know this, but I grew up with these learning challenges that I don't tell a lot of people, and I couldn't read for 2 years, but I learned how to read by reading comic books. Wow. Because something about the pictures and the stories really made sense to me. And my favorite comic book growing up was the X-Men, which Wolverine is an X-Men. Sure, and I was like, because the X-Men weren't necessarily the most powerful, but they didn't fit in. They were mutants. They were different. And I felt like in school, I didn't fit in. Right. And the highlight, I'm telling the CEO and the chairman, was when I was reading this comic book, I found out they had a school of all these X-Men, and it was in Westchester, New York, and that's where they all trained. You know, the school of greatness, if you will. Sure. And I grew up in Westchester, New York. Wow. So I told him this, and this is a true story. When I was 7 and 8 years old, on the weekends, I would ride my little bike around my neighborhood trying to find that school. Because I wanted to run away, leave my school, which I didn't like, and go into X-Men, because they're different and I'm different, and I want to learn my superpowers and what's my superpowers, right? And what's other people's superpowers. Sure. And I tell him this like I'm a little kid, like I'm 8 years old, and he's like, Jim, I didn't know you like superheroes. Do you want to go to Comic-Con? And I'm like, oh, Comic-Con's the biggest conference in the country, right? And I'm like, oh, well, when is it? He's like, it's going on now, this weekend. And I was like, all of a sudden I go from 8-year-old to an 88-year-old. I'm thinking, oh, I have all these meetings. How am I going to get there? I don't have clothes. I have to wait on lines. There's going to be traffic to get to San Diego from LA. Yeah. And I just make all these excuses, that's I think adults do. We become critics, and we become, you know, like squelchers of our own dreams sometime. Yeah. And he looks at me, he's like, Jim, do you want to go or not? I'm going tomorrow. And I was like, oh, the chairman of Fox Studios going, yeah, I want to go with you. Yeah. So he picks me up the next morning, Saturday, 8 o'clock. And we don't drive down. We get on the Fox plane. And
sweet.
Yeah, and I get on the plane.
You're flying like a superhero.
Literally. And when I get on the plane, Louis, there's the entire, I kid you not, cast of X-Men on that plane. And like Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman.
Did he tell you that they were going to be on there?
No. Oh, and I'm sitting in between Halle Berry and Jennifer Lawrence, right? And you know, and I want to put these pictures on Instagram, right? Like, cause like I have like half my pictures are like pictures of like superheroes and stuff. But it's like, and I can't even believe it. And we go there, spend the entire day with the cast at Comic-Con. We come back to LA that night on the plane, and he was like, how's your day? I was like, this is the best day ever. I was like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. He was like, well, I have something else for you. I'm like, no, what can I do for you? I don't need anything else. You're not going to top this. He was like, well, the cast really loved you. How would you like to go on set? I was like, what do you mean? He was like, we have another month of filming the new X-Men movie. And I was like, oh yeah, I totally want to do that. And he was like, well, I was like, what can I do for you? And I was like, oh, just share these tips, teach them how to speed read scripts and memorize their lines and be focused on. I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. So the next morning we're on the Fox, they call it the X-Jet, and I'm answering their questions on brain and brain performance and focus and memory and reading. And I get to spend an entire week with them on set, 12 hours a day, eating with them, working out with them, and watching my childhood heroes come to life.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just like, I can't even describe it, because I was like a 7-year-old the entire time. Like I would be sitting here and Brian Singer, the director, was here the entire time. I was just like here. And when I get home, and this is, what a class act. I get home and there's a package waiting for me about the plasma TV. And I open it and it's this photograph of me and the entire cast of the X-Men.
Yeah, I saw it over there. We'll link that up in the show notes.
And it's like, I won't take it off my Facebook cover picture, but here's the thing, even better than that was the note from the chairman. And the note said this verbatim. It said, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your superpowers with us. It said, I know you've been looking for your school. Here's your class photo.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
I just want to cry.
That's so cool.
That's the story there. But the lesson there is twofold. I would say this. It came from being, for tapping, I think there's this childlike learner genius inside all of us. And because I was that authentic and I kind of like let that out, it kind of led to that. So in what areas of our life can we be more playful and be more authentically?
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is practice stress management.
And finally, number 10, what I try to practice every single day is stress management. So if you want to know what the biggest obstacle is for people's brains is stress.
Stress creates cortisol, adrenaline in your body, and it's really good for fight or flight. It's not really good if you need to take a test. It's not really good if you need to study. It's not really if you have to read reports and journals and learn something brand new or learn a language.
Sure.
Because that'll shut down parts of your brain.
Wow.
So those are the 10 things that I focus on every single day. That's what's going to move the needle more than anything.
Now I've got a special bonus clip from Jim on how to study success that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the 3-point landing questions. Time to move from just watching another video to taking action in your life or business. And if you're feeling bold, leave your answers in the comments below. Here we go. Question number 1, where do you need to be kind to yourself? Question number 2, what is your why that you need to start with? And question number 3, what belief do you need to change?
And I remember I wanted to quit school, and at that time, you'd appreciate this, a friend asked me to come visit him and his family out on the West Coast, because I was on the East Coast, and he was like, I'd go out there. I was like, yeah, I'll just take a weekend, get a little space from school, because I was thinking about quitting. And when I get there, the family is extremely successful. And I don't just mean financial. They had an amazing home on the water, but they were happy. You know, they were givers. They were learning all the time. And the father, before dinner, asked me these kind of questions. We were walking on his property, and he asked the kind of questions you would ask somebody who just started college, like how's school and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I broke down crying. I was like, and to a stranger I just met 10 minutes ago. Wow. I said, I'm ready to quit. School is just not for me. I'm not smart enough. And he's like, well, why are you in school? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to share, if you will? And it's funny when you're not asked a question in life, it takes a moment to pause to come up with an answer. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like when you're asking questions, and no one's ever asked me those questions before. And when I started to answer, he paused. He said, wait. And he takes out of his back pocket, I swear to you, like a journal and like a diary. And I always thought like 12-year-old girls carry diaries,
Sure,
wrote
yeah.
diaries. And he makes me tears out a couple pieces of paper, and he makes me write down all the goals, like of what I wanted to do in my life. And it's something very powerful about taking pen to paper and just writing like those dreams, your aspirations down. And after maybe 20, 30 minutes, he asked me if I'm done, and I maybe have 40, 50 things there, which is like a bucket list. This is before I knew what a bucket list was. And I start folding the sheets of paper, thinking I'm done with the exercise, to put it back in my pocket, and he grabs them from me. And I was like, I freaked out, because like on that was like
your
everything.
life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't even know who this guy is, and he's very successful. And he starts to just read it. And I'm so intimidated. I feel
loud?
No, in his mind.
Yeah.
And I feel this small, because everything, I didn't know somebody was going to look at it, right? And he looks at it and he says, Jim, and I don't know what he was going to say, because this guy's he's successful. He says, Jim, you are this close to everything on that list. And I'm just thinking, there's no way.
Wow.
How could it give me 10 lifetimes I couldn't put a dent on that list? And then he goes like this.
Ooh.
Yeah, and he says like as if this was the key here, and he takes me into his home, and it's this beautiful home. He takes me into a room I've never seen before, and it's wall to wall, ceiling to floor, covered in books. I mean, I've never seen like a library in somebody's house before. And he starts grabbing these books. You'll love this. He starts grabbing books and starts handing them to me, and starts to pile up really, really, really high. And when I start looking at the titles, because I'm curious, there are these biographies of amazing men and women in history, and some really early personal development books, like Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale, and Psycho-Cybernetics, and all these books. I'm just like, and then I kind of get an inkling of what he wants me to do with these books, and he asked me to read like one of these books a week. And I'm just thinking, and I say to him, there's just no way. I just told you I have all this schoolwork.
And you're what, 19 now? Or
I'm 18 years old.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way I have all these, I can't even finish one book. I have these reading challenges, and I have these learning challenges, and I have all this schoolwork. And he was like, Jim, he looked at me right in the eye. He said, Jim, don't let school get in the way of your education.
Ooh.